I'd like to show you today how to use a V-ruler when marking on a temari. This is designed with the angle for a C10 division, but it's also really handy for any kind of measuring you want to do on a Japanese temari ball. This one is marked with light gray thread in a combination 8 division. I'm going to mostly cover the whole ball with stitching, not quite, but most of it. And what's left where I can see these guidelines, I'm going to take them out. So this is called invisible marking or marking with an inconspicuous thread. And when you do that, you want to measure and mark your C8 just as perfectly as you can. We're going to have a lot of shapes meeting up, and we like them to look really good and to be perfectly formed. Well, as perfect as we can be. We can't be totally perfect in a temari ball. There will be some discrepancies. I have pins in place here for 14 faces marking, so I'll be adding extra support lines for that. This is for a design called Blue Poppies. It's for my level 2 class for the JTA. So since I know I'd like this C8 to be marked really well, before I put these extra pins in, I checked just to make sure. This is, say this is my North Pole pin, there's my equator. I measured the distance between the equator and the pole pin. I made sure they were all the same. I did that for the North Pole, the South Pole, everywhere I could. I checked that the side of the triangles, see this is a 6-part triangle here, I wanted those sides to be the same everywhere on the ball. And I actually did that before I tacked. So once I was sure it was marked as well as it could be with the pins, then I added my marking thread, the gray, and I tacked with white thread. When you tack with the same color wrapping thread, then it's a lot easier to remove this guideline thread later. Now the extra pins that I've added, I've put in for a 14 faces marking. If you look in the temari workbook, which is a free download you can get on my website, you'll see the diagram for that, and it tells you to measure the equator to pole distance from here to here and divide by 3.41, and then to place a pin from each of these triangle corners, that distance. On this ball, when I divided, I got in between 2 and 2.1. So what I did was I measured out, it's very easy, and put a pin in each of these spots. And then you see I'll have a square here. But before I add the extra lines, got all my pins in, I want to check and make sure that the hexagon is nicely shaped. If I can get all of these the same lines, the same length, the lines the same length, then I'll have a really pretty ball. So I'll measure across. This is the top of the hexagon. I'll measure this side, and I'll measure this side. I'll measure this side. So here's the hexagon that I'm going to stitch, and here's the square. So once I've checked all of these, sometimes you want to, you'll be able to fudge them a little bit. Say you've got this distance is too short, you can just move this pin to the other side of the guideline, and that might take care of it. When you move a pin, make sure you check in the other directions that you haven't changed things too much. So the next step in this 14 faces marking is to stitch a square around each of the 4 pins here in the 8-part square. And then for the Blue Poppies design, I'd like each of the hexagons to have a 12-way center, so I'll add extra lines to divide those further. So the V-ruler is very handy to use. This is one actually that I tested when I first got them to see if it would break or not. I have some crease marks. It did not. It won't break. And it did remain creased, but I'm still using it. I flatten it out, and it still curves nicely along the ball. It lays really well. It's soft, and it has a nice matte finish, so it's very easy to read.